Hello and welcome if you're tuning in. Recently made a three-part video series covering my Xbox and Xbox 360 games. Had some fun with that, so figured it might be fun to take a look at my Switch collection. I'll probably do a couple more of these too, possibly, if I'm still having fun with it, covering my Super Nintendo and N64 collections as well. Maybe go over some of my gaming setups and modded consoles and whatnot. I don't know. As long as I'm having fun with it, I'll keep putting these out. We'll just see how it goes. But yeah, you can subscribe if you want. No promises though on content, but if you want to stay tuned, by all means. Covering my Switch collection today, we'll start off with Astral Chain. This is an action JRPG. You're going to notice a recurring theme immediately with my Switch collection, which is that I was basically stocking up on as many killer JRPGs as I possibly could. These tend to go up in value over time, so getting them while they're somewhat reasonable on a very collectible console was the objective. Astral Chain is a game that I think most people had it listed as a hidden gem for a long time. Then it was on everyone's hidden gem lists, and I don't think it's really very hidden anymore. I think this is just an absolutely killer game, and I'm very excited to play it. Super interesting mechanics and awesome graphics. This copy is still sealed, but I am excited to crack into that. People think very highly of that game, and I'm excited to see what I think of it as well. Again, this is just loaded with JRPGs. I do have a couple other titles, a couple of first-party titles, but here's one of the weird oddballs. Next, in alphabetical order, Doki Doki Literature Club Plus. This is an oddball in the collection for sure. I bought this on a whim because I saw it come up cheap on Amazon sale or eBay or something. It is still sealed, but I looked it up once or it popped up as a recommendation to me on Steam, and it's just got rave reviews. But the comments and the description of this game, and if you know this game, then you're aware, I'm sure, of something that I'm not. Again, this is sealed, but it looks like just kind of a fun slice of life high school anime girl situation. But apparently this is a crazy over the top horror game or something. It goes completely off the rails and is absolutely unhinged. The comments section on Steam is pretty funny. I bought it because I gotta see what's going on. It's got overwhelmingly positive reviews, like 97% positive, and it's all people raving about how good it is and how horrifying it is. And I just have no idea what to expect going into it. So we're just going to check it out and see what the deal is. Right into one of the absolute best JRPGs, maybe on the console. Some people aren't as into this really traditional turn-based JRPG format. This is like the quintessential JRPG. It's very much turn-based, simple combat, great story, but it's not with it just doesn't innovate in a lot of ways. It doesn't do a whole lot different from the classic turn-based JRPG style, and that's sort of its strength. It just really polishes it and does it super well, but the characters in this game are amazing. The story is fantastic. I was hooked the whole way through. Played maybe 75, 80 hours, beat the main game. I was into the post-game content before I ended up even just setting it down. But I was hooked from start to finish. That game is amazing. Dragon Quest XI is an absolute must-play if you're into JRPGs. Next up, the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster Collection. This is Final Fantasy 1 through 6 remastered with a bunch of quality of life features like sped up gameplay, improved UI, and all the graphics obviously have been updated. So it allows you to get through the games quicker, and it has literally 1 through 6. With 4 and 6 being praised as some of the best JRPGs ever made, still to this day, on a lot of people's top 5, top 3 of their lists. So this is an expensive game, and this is sealed. Usually it ranges anywhere from 90 to 100 and something dollars, depending on where you're getting it and the time you're getting it. I don't know if it's gone up or down since then. I received this as a Christmas gift from a generous family member, but I haven't cracked into it. Very excited to play through 4 and 6. I'll probably start with 6, which I have dabbled with in the past on Super Nintendo, but I'm excited to play this updated graphics version, and it's really awesome to have all those on one, just all in one box there. Another theme you might notice here is, for the most part, I've tried to make the collection just hyper curated to my JRPG tastes, and it's all killer, no filler, is kind of the game plan here. So maybe there's a couple oddballs like the Doki Doki one, but not very many. It's mostly just games I'm very excited to play. All JRPGs for the most part. So if you like JRPGs, keep on. Just stay tuned here because we're going in that direction basically the whole time. So yeah, Fire Emblem Engage. Fire Emblem is a storied franchise, very well known, very well respected. This game isn't as well respected. It gets a bad rap for the kind of Colgate colored hair characters and a pretty middling story. I've read and I've been told, but the combat and the introduction of a lot of former characters back into the story uh, is supposedly awesome. And the people that have played through it, and really like Fire Emblem for its gameplay, seem to really enjoy this. I think the combat is really going to sell it, and I'm excited to give it a try. I'm not a person that can't slog through a medium story if the gameplay elements are fun, and I'm thinking the gameplay elements are pretty sick there, and the graphics are awesome as well. Next up, what is arguably almost assuredly the better Fire Emblem game on Switch, Fire Emblem Three Houses. This one gets ample praise as being one of the best JRPGs on the console. It is a tactical turn-based RPG, just like Fire Emblem Engage, just like all the Fire Emblem games. This one has a complex social system. You pick one of these three houses to ally with, and the story changes as a result. So if you want to see all the content, you play through the game 3 times. There's a complex dating sim mechanic in here, relationship building that's become kind of a staple of the Fire Emblem franchise since I think Awakening on the 3DS. I'm excited to check this game out. People love it. It's highly praised and definitely going to be right up my alley. I loved Fire Emblem Awakening. I love the other Fire Emblem games, and I'm excited to jump into one on the Switch at some point here. Next up, Monster Hunter Rise. This is a cheap one, and yet gets very high praise as being a fantastic game. The Switch entry is pretty solid. The frame rate obviously is not going to be as good as some other consoles or PC, but still a very serviceable title. People really like Monster Hunter Rise, and it's cheap. I got this for about $15. I think it's still cheap. It's sealed. And this is supposedly a very good game. It will be my introduction to Monster Hunter, but I've played other Monster Hunter style games. It's kind of slay the big boss, intense action combat, a lot of reaction time type mechanics and combo attacks. I'm excited to get into this Capcom title here and give the Monster Hunter franchise a try. Next up, what could be argued as filler. I bought this on a recommendation. I think I saw this in an Eric Landon video, another video game JRPG focused YouTuber. But it's an action RPG. It's called Knights of Azure 2, Bride of the New Moon. I think it's a little fan servicey, probably leans a little bit too heavily into it, such that it's cheesy. I don't know that I'm going to love it, but I got it because these games, again, tend to go up in value. I found it for a very good price at a local shop, and I had just seen it in a video where he recommended it as kind of a hidden gem with fun action combat. So picked it up, and I'm going to give it a try. We'll see what I think. It might be a little too cheesy. If I'm eye rolling too hard, then I'll probably end up setting it down, but we're going to give it a shot. Next up, a game that's definitely not cheesy and is almost assuredly going to be an instant classic when I get around to playing it, Octopath Traveler 2. I wanted to, again, curate the list to be games that I want to jump into and I'm excited to play. I looked at Octopath Traveler 1, and people said that while they're completely standalone, 1 and 2, and the second game is better in basically every way. That's what everybody says. So I just skipped 1 and got 2 because, as you're probably seeing here, I have a lot of JRPGs on the Switch, and we're not even halfway through the stack here. And those types of games tend to take a very long time to beat. I figure I'm only going to be able to get through one of them, so I'm going to buy and play the better one. These games are awesome. It's the HD 2D style, kind of popularized that, the first game did, which has seen a huge resurgence in other game franchises like Star Ocean, the Second Story remake, which you may or may not see coming up here, as well as a bunch of other games, are doing that kind of classic art style with the 3D and super enhanced graphics for particle effects and spell abilities and whatnot. It's high definition, but still has that 2D art style and absolutely stunning visuals. I'm excited to give that game a play. Next up, what a lot of people consider to be one of the very best games you can play on the system. There's a few of those that people argue, but generally speaking, I think overall this might be the number one recommendation if you're going to play a JRPG on the Switch or just on PC in general. Granted, it's a big game. I think this game conservatively takes 100 hours to beat or something. The Royal Edition packs extra content and an extra romanceable character, I believe. But this is Persona is a spin-off of the Shin Megami Tensei franchise, a classic JRPG franchise and series. But this game is phenomenal. I beat Persona 4 Golden, which I own digitally on Switch. I'm not going to show off my digital games today, but I beat Persona 4 Golden on Switch, played like 86 hours in that game, absolutely loved it. I know I'm going to love this. I just know it's a huge commitment. So it's staying sealed for now until I'm ready to jump in and do the long haul. But when I do play it, I know it's going to be an absolute gem. This game, it's hard to rave about this one enough. Seeing reviews and gameplay, it's amazing, and that is an understatement. Excited to play that whenever I find the time to play a 100-hour RPG. All right, a game I got to play with my son, but technically I think still considered an RPG, a Pokemon franchise, that is. Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. Gave him the choice between Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu. This is a fun, very co-opable remake of the original kind of red, blue, yellow game, but it has different catching mechanics. It's definitely simplified. Nice art style, but it allows you to have the Pokemon follow you around, and even the second player can do that. It's a little jank to get it working. I found that it was kind of awkward. You have to have the Pokemon in a very specific spot in your party. But once you get it going, it's very fun for kids to have their favorite Pokemon following them around, a little Eevee you can interact with, or you catch a Pikachu, whatever. You fight and battle a little differently in this. Wild encounters, you end up catching Pokemon, like what the Pokemon Let's Go Pokemon mobile game, Pokemon Go. That's what it's called. It was escaping me. That's kind of how wild encounters work. You spin the ball and land it in the circle to catch Pokemon, and you get XP for your whole party. Kind of a weird concept. Not my favorite, but definitely fun to play with my son, and extremely benign in terms of content. So great for a 4-year-old to play with me, almost 5-year-old. Next up is a series that I bought into, and I'm really hoping I like them. It's the Rune Factory series. These will be my first Rune Factory games. I have Rune Factory 3 Special. Oops, not in frame, sorry. Rune Factory 3 Special. I have cracked this open and played a little bit. It was a little cutesy for my taste, but I didn't give it a very long play. I was still in the middle of Persona 4 when I cracked this open to just take a look at it. I think with some more time invested, I'll see what this one is all about. It's like a RPG, action RPG spin on the Harvest Moon, now called Story of Seasons franchise. You could equate it to kind of an anime style Stardew Valley, maybe, kind of in that same vein, but more RPG ish, more farming. Um, yeah, just basically an action RPG blended with Harvest Moon. It sounds like an amazing concept because growing up, Harvest Moon 64 was my favorite game on the Nintendo 64. I loved Back to Nature on PlayStation 1. So I'm hoping these games really grab me and I can see what all the magic's about. People love them. People rave about them. They have great reviews. The third game just didn't grab me when I first tried it, but I'm sure it just needs, I need to be in the right mood. This is Rune Factory 4 special. You can see this one is still sealed, haven't cracked into this yet, but I am excited to try it. This one might be the one that gets me. I think this is the one that is reviewed a little bit more favorably, even better than 3. Everybody has their favorites, but this one seems to come out on top for the franchise, so I'm excited to dive into that one. And then I have Rune Factory 5, which came out on the Switch most recently. I think this is the newest title in the franchise, and I don't think there's a 5 special yet. But this game, I think it got sort of mixed reviews, honestly, but newer games and series always tend to, and I don't have a long history with the franchise, so I might just like it because it's a good game and I'm not worried about sweating the details of whatever they changed because I won't know any better. Next is the craziest sleeper hit imaginable. I'm super into, just for context, Magic the Gathering. I played a ton of that for years before COVID and changing jobs and stuff. Kind of dwindled my player base that I had to play with people, but um, I love Magic the Gathering. I really enjoy MTG Arena. I've had a lot of fun with Magic over the years. I grew up playing the Pokemon trading card game. This is based on a game called Shadowverse, another trading card game. But this is like a full fledged RPG built around a battle system that is essentially just playing the card game against other players. That's all the battles in the entire game are based around doing the card battles, kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh style, I guess. But the card collecting, there's booster packs. You rip the packs to get cards, build decks, build up your collection. You unlock new sets as you progress through the game. It's done in such a way that I just, for whatever reason, just really clicked with me. I put like 90 hours into this game, and I was having so much fun trying to 100% clear it. Building decks with these cards that I'd never seen before, figuring out what they do, and making synergistic decks. This game rules. It's like a kid's game, honestly, in presentation. It's very cheesy at times, but I wasn't sweating the characters or the story. The deck building and card battling mechanics were so fun that I didn't care about any of the other details. Everything else is pretty mid, but the game itself, in terms of the battle system and the card mechanics, are just what I was looking for. All right, next up, Shin Megami Tensei 5. This is a brutally hard game, from what I understand, but probably uh, just a masterpiece. Some consider it the best in the franchise, which is very high praise, considering a lot of the Shin Megami Tensei games get very high praise, and it's a very long, storied franchise. But this one kills it, apparently. There's a new version on Switch called Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, and that version has an extended story, I think new characters, and updated visuals. I haven't purchased that because I already own this. It's tempting, honestly, because of the new content, updated visuals. If I want to play it, it would be cool to play the best version. There's a chance I'll get rid of that and swap it for the new Vengeance version, but I may just end up playing through it as is because people loved it the way it was, and I'm not really missing out on anything too huge. It's not like I know the difference, so I think I'll love it either way, and I may just play it that way. Cheap game, though. If you're looking for a good, cheap JRPG, that's another recommendation there. It's probably $15 to $20. Maybe even cheaper now that the new one's out. Speaking of the HD 2D style earlier, Octopath Traveler inspired a huge list of new ones, and this is one that people were really itching for, and they finally got the remake in HD 2D art style for the Star Ocean Second Story R. The R stands for remake. You can see the updated pixel art graphics here. This game is beautiful. The Star Ocean games are very fun, and this reviewed very well. You can see my copy is still sealed. I have not played it yet. I did beat First Departure R, which I own digitally on Switch, and I picked this one up because I do want to play it. First Departure, I thought was maybe like a 7 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10. I liked it. Certain parts of the game I really liked, but it also wasn't my favorite at other points. It was very grindy at times, felt a little repetitive at times. So it wasn't my favorite overall. Whoops. But I am excited to get into Second Story R. I totally jacked up the camera here. Goodness gracious. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm excited to get into that game and check it out because I really like the first one, and this one's supposed to be way, way better. I'm expecting it to be in like the 8 or 9 out of 10 score category. Another winner here, another remake, Super Mario RPG. This was a Super Nintendo title initially. Super Mario Legend of the Seven Stars, I think it was called. But that cartridge is very expensive, and it's not something you can put on the multi-cart that you can buy and put an SD card into, which I do own for the Super Nintendo, which I'll get into when I do my Super Nintendo collection video. But Super Mario RPG is just a full, beautiful, polished, first-party Nintendo 3D remake of that game. People love it. They did a great job with it. It's a very accessible beginner JRPG. If you're looking for somewhere to start, this is a great place to start. It's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of humor. Definitely a different take on the classic Mario characters. It's funny. It's fun. And it's a good time. And it's not super overly long. So a great place to start for a beginner to the franchise. Here's the game. One of the first games in a long time that I bought new. Because a 2D platforming Mario game sounded fantastic at the time, and it is fantastic. I think the praise it got, maybe to me, when people were hailing it as like the best 2D Mario game ever, that seemed a little high. I thought it was good. I've had fun with it, but it didn't blow my mind as like this reinvented Mario in such a way that I couldn't even fathom it, which is what some reviews were saying. To me, it was just a really solid, good addition to the Mario 2D platforming library. Definitely recommend it, especially for the co-op. It's got fantastic co-op that I play with my son, and he really likes it. It's accessible for even little kids. So, next up is Trials of Mana, another remake. Again, another recurring theme here. This is Seiken Densetsu 3. I believe I pronounced that sort of correctly. But it's the Mana series. So the initial game, Secret of Mana, we did get here in the States, but we didn't get this third game on the Super Nintendo. However, they did the full 3D Switch remake treatment for this one as well. Good short romp. You can rip through this game in probably 20, 25 hours if you're really ripping through it. I got, I think, probably 2/3 of the way through the game. Kind of ran out of gas. It's a little generic at times. And I had just beaten another giant RPG before I started playing this, so I was just a little burnt out. Needed a break. I'll definitely go back to it, though. It's a fun game. I like it a lot. And it's very visually pleasing, very accessible. Another good place to start. It's an action RPG. If you want to start with an action RPG, not a turn-based RPG, I would start here. It's cheap. It's a nice, quick 20, 25-hour playthrough, and it has some replayability as you pick 3 of these 6 characters to play with. Next playthrough, you can choose, another 3 characters. So yeah, a great game. Next up, newer game, still sealed, but I have played a good amount of the demo. I really liked it. This is a Atlas published title, but this is a Vanillaware game called Unicorn Overlord. When Vanillaware comes out with a game, I take notice. The art style's fun, but they know how to make good games. I had Odin Sphere on PS2. I have that on my modded PS2. I love that game. It's fun. They did Dragon's Crown on the PS3. They've done a lot of just good games over the years, and this is a turn-based tactical RPG. Kind of has its own battle system style, but very, very cool. Great story, great graphics. This game is fantastic. Reviewed well. Happy to pick it up. This is one of the first games. This might be the first game in a decade that I've pre-ordered because I was so excited for it. Did not let me down. This is a great game. I'm excited to play through and break that seal when I'm ready to play through it. Next up, this is the game that I beat that ran me out of steam on Trials of Mana, because this is a beefy one. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. This is a fantastic game. I probably don't need to go on too much about it because people talk about this game being a masterpiece so often. They're not wrong. The battle system, I will say, if you play this and you feel a little off for quite a while, that's how I felt. The story was great and the characters were good, so it's not one of those just keep playing, in 20 hours it'll get good. Now, it was good from the start. I like the story, I like the characters, but the battle system just felt weird for me for a while. It just didn't click until I started thinking about it like playing an MMO instead of playing a JRPG. And then it kind of clicked a little bit better when I just started approaching it mentally from a different angle. My expectations of the combat changed a little bit. So this is a fantastic, long, sprawling, open world RPG. If you're looking for a big game to play to get a lot of value for money, this is a great game. And it's part of a long series, next of which is Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which I am very excited to play. This had some controversial opinions because there's some sort of gacha system, which is like a kind of gambling random lottery system around certain items, I believe, or armor that you can obtain later in the game. People didn't love that random chance to get the thing that you need. Sometimes people like to, slay a specific boss and get a specific item, but I kind of like rolling the dice. We'll see if I end up hating the implementation in this game, but I don't mind stuff like that. I don't mind kind of a booster pack system, pull random stuff and see if you can get the thing you're looking for. I find it exciting when it does pay off. And usually you can make do even if you don't get that specific thing that you need. So I'd imagine people were overreacting. It did review well, and people do love that game. So here's the physical copy of the expansion content for the second game, Torna the Golden Country, for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. This is a prequel story. I will be playing it after I beat the second game. This is sealed physical, and this is considered, people like this even better, I think, from as a complete package overall experience than the original Xenoblade Chronicles 2. People really like this. And of course, I got to complete the Xenoblade Chronicles series here. I'm also going to get the Future Redeemed, I believe it's called, expansion content, DLC. It's digital only, so I will need to download that to the Switch. But there's a DLC that finishes the full story of this whole trilogy to this game. And this game is hailed by many as the best in the series. Really polishes the gameplay systems, introduces some amazing characters, probably, I would imagine, reintroduces some old characters along the way, and really wraps up the story nicely in the DLC content. So very excited to get through these, but they are big games. First game took me over 80 hours, I believe. Now I did some side content, but they're big games, so expect a big experience. But you get a lot of value for your money, so that's how we justify it. And last game on the Switch physical is Ys 8, Lacrimosa of Dana. Action RPG. Popped it in to make sure it worked, but otherwise haven't played this. However, I am very excited to play through it. I do have the PAL version of this, but it's region free, so it does work on the US console and is playable in English, so no issues there. People love this game. The Ys series is pretty well known, I think. It's getting bigger as time goes on. Classic Falcom action RPG, and people really love this one. This really reinvigorated things and brought a spark to the Ys series here in the West, and I'm excited to play through it since people say this is just an absolute masterpiece. So yeah, that's all of my physical Switch games. The last thing I would note, you can kind of see the box in the back corner there. I play on the OLED Switch. Uh, as a dad with multiple kids, a wife, all that, being able to play handheld is pretty handy. So that is kind of my go-to setup. I play more handheld than I play docked, just because the ability to have it in hand. If a kid's having an issue, I can just hit the home button and pause the game in the middle of a cutscene, even, and help a kid out if they're, having a bad dream or something while they're sleeping during my evening gaming time or whatever. Handheld is just the way to go. And that OLED screen is, if you have a regular Switch, it's fine. But if you are looking to get into the Switch, the OLED screen is insane. It is a game changer. It's fantastic. And now that I have one, I don't think I could go back to the original. And I did swap out, let's see if I can grab it here, the grips. I'm using these. Now, normally I put these on the side of the Switch console, but this is what it comes with. Nixie is the brand. However, I believe any Amazon Joy-Cons, like third-party Joy-Cons that are in this style with this shape. I think there's another one where the brand is named Binbach or something. I think they're all made, I read somewhere that they're all made in the same factory in the same place, and they're basically the exact same thing with a different brand on it. So they're pretty decent. These thumbsticks don't feel amazing. The buttons have a little mush to them. The D-pad is okay, but the form factor in terms of those default Joy-Cons for a grown man playing a game console, they won't do. They're awkward to hold in my hand. So these bigger, like full grip Joy-Con replacements have been phenomenal. I highly recommend them if you're uncomfortable with the stock Joy-Cons at all. I would try out some third-party ones. I tried out the I don't remember what they're called. There's another popular one, but it lacks the rumble. These have the rumble, and they are wireless. They don't need to be docked to turn on. They have the battery and the rumble. And I really like having that ability, because then you can play it as a controller like I have it now. And they have their own internal battery, and they work just like normal Joy-Cons. So that's a recommendation, I guess, loosely with no affiliation. But yeah, that's how I play. And I'll probably do an N64 collection video. I have a pretty substantial N64 collection, as well as maybe Super Nintendo at some point too. We'll see if I feel up to it. If there's some level of interest, you can just throw a comment saying you'd like to see that or whatever. That might spur me on, but otherwise I'll just do it if I feel like it. And yeah, if you are tuning in, thanks for watching. Keep your eyes peeled for potentially more of these if I feel like it.